I have always loved living out in nature, so when I came across this peaceful valley surrounded by trees, I knew it was the perfect place to build my dream home. And before long, I had designed and constructed my very own log cabin completely off the grid. It was everything I ever wanted. Nothing but peace and quiet. But after a while, I began hearing strange noises coming from the nearby houses. Loud parties, screaming kids, lawnmowers going at full blast. But I just shrugged it off. After all, these people had been living there for years, so they must be doing something right. That is, until one day when an overly made-up woman with bright pink flamingos on her shoes marched onto my property. You gotta get rid of that ugly cabin, you hear me? It violates our aesthetic standards. Before I could say a word, she turned around and stomped away. I just built that cabin last week, so I couldn't help but feel a little confused. Who was that crazy lady? Why was she talking about aesthetic standards? And why did she think she could walk onto my property without asking? Turns out she was none other than Karen, the HOA president. For some reason, she thought she could tell me what to do with my own house. Here's how it all went down. Karen wasn't just any ordinary Karen. She was the head of the local Homeowners Association, a position she took very seriously. According to her, our neighborhood was a sacred place where everyone followed the rules and abided by the aesthetic standards, whatever those may be. In fact, she had spent most of her free time driving around the neighborhood in her golf cart, looking for anyone who might be breaking the rules. Well, apparently, she spotted my cabin from the hiking trail and decided I had violated some obscure rule or standard. But I wasn't in any kind of homeowners association. I'd never signed any paperwork agreeing to abide by their stupid rules. So technically, they had no power over me or my property. Still, I had hoped Karen would understand when I explained the situation, but instead, she flew into a rage. "Don't play dumb with me," she screamed. "You know the rules. You know we have standards to uphold around here. And you know your cabin is ugly and has got to go." I felt like explaining myself, but then I realized it was pointless. This woman clearly had some kind of screw loose. So I just let her rant and rave. Eventually, she calmed down and started pacing back and forth. "Let me make this perfectly clear," she said. "You have 24 hours to tear down that cabin, or else I will call the cops." Well, I just laughed at her and told her to do whatever she wanted. Little did I know she would hold to her word. The next thing I knew, 2 police cars were outside my cabin. I opened the door, and there was the 2 officers and Karen standing behind them with a smug look on her face. "Mr. Williams," the officer said, "we received a complaint about some illegal structures on your property. Is there anything we can help you with?" I had a feeling I knew who filed the complaint, but I decided to play dumb. "Illegal structures," I replied. "What are you talking about?" The officer looked from me to Karen and back again. "Karen here told us that you built this structure without a permit, and now you are refusing to take it down, is that right?" I sighed and shook my head. It looks like there's been a misunderstanding. That's my cabin, not some illegal structure, and I have every right to be here. In fact, I don't just own that cabin, I own the entire valley. The officers looked shocked and embarrassed. They quickly apologized and left. I thought Karen had finally learned her lesson, but I was wrong. She thought calling the cops would scare me off. She was sorely mistaken. If anything, it just made me more determined to stand my ground. After all, I had done nothing wrong. In the coming days, Karen tried everything she could to harass me. She put up flyers around the neighborhood accusing me of ruining the community. She sent emails to my neighbors, claiming I was planning to turn the valley into a garbage dump. And she even made posts on social media saying I was a menace to society. I was tempted to defend myself, but I knew it would only make things worse. Instead, I stayed quiet and collected evidence of her harassment. All the while, Karen thought she was winning. After all, I had been quiet ever since the cops had visited my cabin, so she assumed I had finally given in. But behind the scenes, I was plotting my revenge. I had endured enough of Karen's nonsense, and it was time to put an end to it once and for all. So I called my lawyer and told him to prepare for a court battle. When Karen heard I was suing her, she panicked. She had never imagined I would fight back. But it was too late. On the day of the trial, I presented all the evidence I had gathered to the court. Everything from the threatening note she left on my doorstep to the defamatory posts she made online. Karen tried to deny everything, but her lies were shattered by the evidence. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor and fined her for harassment and trespassing. To say Karen was humiliated would be an understatement. She was dragged through the mud in front of the entire community, and she had no one to blame but herself. The news of the court ruling spread like wildfire through the neighborhood, and soon the entire community knew about Karen's malicious behavior. The HOA board held an emergency meeting and voted to remove her from her position of power. Finally, Karen was held accountable for her actions. From that day forward, I lived in peace once again, free from the drama and petty squabbles of the HOA. And though the scars of their pettiness still lingered, I knew I had stood up for what was right. It had not been easy to go toe-to-toe with an HOA Karen, especially when they had the power to make life miserable. But in the end, it had been worth it. Not only had I won the case against them, but I had also exposed their true colors to the entire community. Now, whenever I saw Karen around town, I knew that she was nothing more than a bully looking for someone weaker to pick on. And I had proven that no matter how much power they wielded, I would not be intimidated by their petty games. So if you ever find yourself in a situation with an HOA Karen, remember, never underestimate the quiet one who owns the whole valley.